Hi everyone, welcome into episode 5 of my interactive tutorial. If this is the first episode you've seen, just to give you an overview, this is an interactive tutorial where you can actually go and download the park that I'm working in and follow along as I explain some tips and tricks that I typically use in the game. And the link to that workshop item is in the description below. So if that's something you don't have yet, hit pause, go ahead and download it, and then you can jump in and follow along as I progress. So I know from speaking with a lot of people that the path tool is a source of sort of universal frustration. That being said, there are ways to manipulate it and create plazas, create smaller steps than the game will allow you. And this is, again, like all of these videos, these are not things that I've personally come up with. They're stuff that I've just seen throughout the community. And the intention of this is to allow you to learn by doing. That's the best way that I learn. I have to do something to learn it. So this is a visual cue for you to follow along and learn these tips and tricks. So the first thing we're going to do here is create these steps. Well, let me back up one step. The very first thing you should do anytime you're trying to create a large plaza is to level the ground. So I'm going to just do a nice big sweep over this area because sometimes the slightest imperfections in the ground will cause the terrain tool to sort of malfunction, or it won't want to connect to a certain, part of another piece of path. And yeah, it can be incredibly frustrating. So if you're trying to create a plaza or something, I always just level the ground like that to give yourself a good starting point. Then what you do here, and again, this is something that I actually saw on the official forums. I think someone had found on there, and it's an amazing technique because it allows a ton of versatility in terms of elevation within your park. So what you do is you just grab a shop, and I usually go for about 3 steps there. And then in terms of where it's going to sit on this junction, so these little highlights are your friend. So you see this dark line here. That's letting you know what pieces of path you're manipulating. So if I put it there, it's dead center. So the only piece of path that I'm manipulating here is just this square right here. If I go a little bit to the right, now it's manipulating this piece. And if you're trying to do something on the grid, that will matter. So there we go. We're dead center there. Plop the building down, put one next to it on each side, and there you go. You've got already steps there. Then you just hit done on the building, delete those, and your steps remain. Now there are going to be, some slight variation in them sometimes, but that's okay. Then from here, what we're going to do is attach a piece there. We're going to select that grid, and we're going to fill in the gaps and create our little plaza. All right, and then again, go back and grab the shops. Z to rotate, X for advance move. I want to try to get this as close to the edge as I can so that it'll still leave room for another set right here. We'll elevate it up. So the further you back away and the lower your elevation, it's just going to turn this thing into a ramp. So I'd like to go a little bit close, and again, I try to shoot for like 3 steps. So I think that looks pretty good. So put it down, put in another one, and delete. Now, on this section here, we use the grid to create this path area, but there's another way you can do it that allows for more flexibility. So I'll show you what I mean by that. If we do a grid again, we'll leave it like that. And then you try to attach a path to it. See how it doesn't like this edge right here? it only let me go off in one direction or another. It doesn't want me to combine those two pieces of path together. Now, that depending on what you're trying to accomplish, that could be a good thing. Like if you want to split this off into, you know, different directions, you can hold down the Z key and it gives you a nice, you know, clean junction. You can do the same thing over here. You know, kind of spread the path off in two different directions. So that's helpful to have that restriction there if you want it. But if you don't want to do that, like let's say you wanted to just have a piece of path going off in this direction, then what you can do, so you attach one piece like that, rotate it until it connects there. And then what the benefit of that, if I want to do like a larger piece here, it gives me access to that full entire edge. So now I'm not limited to just a 4 meter section. I can go off in kind of any direction I want. So those are some of the options available to you. In this example here, I just did another piece of grid, so we'll do that to finish it off. But certainly you have tons of flexibility. Select the grid. Oops. I think that's all I did, maybe 2 more. Okay, so there's your options to do different stepped up levels. You know, in terms of how you could practically implement this into your parks, you know, you could create really cool dining areas that come down from maybe a larger plaza, or it could just be a cool way to change elevation in your park. You know, that's something that I've been trying to do in Jubilee Gardens, is implement elevation changes, just because it makes things more interesting than if it's just entirely flat. And this is a great way to sort of do that. And then, of course, you would just build up the terrain around these to sort of make it more even. There's also an advanced sort of terrain technique that you can use, which we'll get into in the next episode, where you can kind of make them even, but that takes a little bit of work to get accomplished. Okay, so we've got the steps here, but now we'll talk about creating a larger plaza like that. The 10 meter pieces in the game are honestly way too big to use as sort of a main thoroughfare. So if you're going to create a path for people to walk on, that is way too big. And it's a mistake that I have made early on in the game, and I've since shrunk down the scale of the path that I use, because once you actually get down into peep level, those 10 meter, you know, really anything above probably about 6 is probably too big. But they do work well for plazas. So we'll put a piece down there. Now this creates a pivot point for us. I'm going to turn the angle snap back on, and I'm going to move it 45 degrees. So it's 15, 30, 45. Then another 45, another 45, and then it lets you create a nice big circle. Now that same thing works for any of the paths at widths. And then we'll just let it kind of do its thing and connect there. And then this piece that I jutted off of here is just 4 meters. And then I'm going to select the grid, bring it out a ways. And then I fill in the angles here because that's how it's gonna help us achieve that nice curve that joins that T junction together. So the way you accomplish that, and again, this is something that has been featured before, but those highlights are your friend. So the highlights here you can see are telling you which pieces of path are going to be affected by what you're doing. So I'm going to hit that, and then I'm going to delete what I just did, and it creates a nice curve. Now if I go into here, it's going to affect, again, all the pieces of path that are highlighted. So let's see what that looks like when I do that. So it keeps it, so it kept it here, and it then combined the 2 paths down here. So it bridges the gap between this line and this line based on where I had it. Now if I want to give that nice smooth curve, here it's bridging the gap between this line more like in here and down here. So it's going to create a nice smooth curve in this area. There you go. And then you can keep going. So brings it out to those. Now it's going to impact this piece over here. Same thing there. Keep going. There you go. Nice and symmetrical. You've got nice lines. You know, you could put shops in along this edge. You know, maybe some backstage there or something. You know, there's tons of flexibility, tons of options. And then you can just sort of whatever you want to do creatively, you can just go in and start filling in gaps. You know, you can, sometimes these are a little bit of a hassle to combine. If they're giving you a ton of difficulty, what I've found is turning off the angle snap really helps. So here I'm just going to try to, for some reason it doesn't want to connect there. So, you know, if that's the kind of thing you run into, then, you know, you can just find areas where it will let you connect. And then, you know, you can keep using these tools to get the curves and stuff that you want. Maybe you go like that. Yeah, so really this is where you can start adding on to pieces and create large plazas that are filled in. And then these extra areas here, you can do a couple things. You can either turn that into like a planter or something, or for something like this, you can take the flat roof, and there's a rough concrete. Yeah, it's pretty similar color, but if you do the advanced move, and you can just very slightly sink it underground and hide it, and you can do that over here, there you go. You know, when you zoom too far out, it does clip through, but you know, for the most part, down low, when you're at peep level, it can give the appearance of one giant plaza. So that's about it for the path tricks that I have. Like I said, in episode 6, we will get into path and terrain interaction and ways you can kind of manipulate that. But hopefully this is helpful. Again, this is information that's out there, but hopefully doing it side by side in the video is something that you know, makes it kind of stick and starts to get you more familiar with the ways to manipulate the trick. So anyway, I will see you guys in episode 6. Thanks so much for watching.